Hi everyone, and welcome to the Friday, January 21st installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in the Valley. My name is Mike Malone, and I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman of NBC Bay Area. Our producer is Jordan Henderson, our East Coast correspondent is Bob Grove, and our host, as always, is the Silicon Valley Business Journal. Okay, Scott, interesting week. In larger affairs beyond Silicon Valley or even tech, but we're going to see its impact, I think, on what we're talking about today. Okay, first of all, the Netflix of gaming. It looks like Microsoft has bought Activision for $68 billion. Now that's obviously Microsoft's largest acquisition, but that's one of the largest acquisitions of anything ever, right?
I think it's the biggest tech buyout ever, yeah.
Yeah. Huge for gaming too.
It really is. You know, Microsoft, which has made a big comeback, and we've talked about that before under Satya Nadella, selling software, really has such an advantage in the living room with the Xbox.
Yes.
And I remember when the Xbox came out and it was competing with, the PS2 for your living room, and it was one of those things where who's going to get that space? Is it going to be Microsoft or is it going to be Sony? And Microsoft has just grown and grown its gaming.
Wouldn't you have bet on the PlayStation back then?
Yeah, because Sony was known for gaming and so was PlayStation. But Microsoft did the right thing, and largely because it has so much cash that it bought everybody and their uncle, and I think this is a great move because, well, for several reasons.
Well, it's an interesting lateral move. It's
right.
It's like Microsoft just decided, we're going to take gaming now.
Right. It's going to be subscription gaming. It's gaming on the Xbox platform. Who knows what else we'll be doing? I mean, I almost hate to discuss the metaverse because, in my opinion, it's so overhyped with nothing to show yet. But this is this is the next platform for the Xbox, and it's all of these things that you can do, with your Grand Theft Auto or whatever. I mean.
So, let's see. Since it launched Game Pass in 2017, it's bought Bethesda Softworks, Double Fine, the studio behind Forza Horizon, and it's going on and on. And maybe it's worth the $15 a month now.
Well, it's funny.
That was always the question: is this thing overpriced? I mean,
right. You bring up Game Pass, and Microsoft was never a company, say that the Netflixes of the world that depend on subscriptions.
Yes.
But it has quietly got a whole lot of subscriptions, and this will bring even more.
Well, that was my opening headline. Are they going to become the Netflix of gaming?
I don't know about the Netflix of gaming. A couple of companies have tried already.
But they don't have this kind of muscle.
Well, but do you want to borrow the games is my
Yes.
question. People like to own games. They like to go back and play these games over and over again, as opposed to movies. Some people like to own movies, but Netflix is successful because we like to stream them and then move on.
And the movie doesn't change every time you look at it. So
very good point.
What's the point of having a copy?
Right. So I don't know if it's the Netflix of gaming, but I think we're creating the Microsoft of gaming, which is pretty large and pretty impressive.
An incredible move. I mean, this company been slowly bringing itself back to glory, and this is a major play. I mean, this is one of the biggest plays I've ever seen Microsoft do in 30 years.
It is its biggest play, and Microsoft toyed around with other consumer things, with the phone and talks about a watch and all that. Microsoft under Satya Nadella sticks to what it does well, software and gaming, and it's still giant in both.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, this is a book that has yet to be written. The complete turnaround of this company. It looks nothing like the company of Bill Gates, which is kind of, I mean, they're stuck with their legacy products, but this is not Bill Gates' company.
No, because it's not Bill Gates' world.
No.
And that's why Satya Nadella was such a good choice.
So he's trying to make it his world the other way.
Well, right. But it's not Steve Ballmer's world either.
No, it's not Ballmer's world.
And we're in a new world with everything being mobile, and gaming is so important. Microsoft gets it. And, Sony stock dropped on this move.
Well, I bet.
Because of the power that the Xbox now has. That's a real big move. I mean, this thing was felt literally across the globe.
What has happened to Sony over all these years? I don't get it. They had the whole game. I mean, literally the business. They had consumer electronics in the palm of their hand, and they've lost every bit of it now.
they've lost. I mean, they still have a big chunk of gaming. The
Yeah,
PlayStation
sure.
continues to be fantastically successful.
But you can see its death now. You can hear
Right.
its death now. I mean, you
Well,
see its future, and it's not a good one.
it's been a lagger. So it waited until, Apple came out with cool computers and then it tried, but it didn't succeed.
Yeah.
It waited until phones came out, it tried and didn't succeed. Sony is still known, I guess, for good televisions and a good gaming console.
Yeah, but it was the innovator in each of those markets, and now it's the follower. It's always the also ran.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sort of where Nokia found itself. Like,
Yes.
hey, wait a minute, we were doing this first, but we didn't keep up with where the market was going. And maybe Sony was just too gigantic and slow to move.
Well, they weren't when they, you know, first got rolling. They
That was
were
a long
big.
time
They were
ago.
a big giant conglomerate then,
True.
and they were the most innovative company on the planet. Okay, let's go to a company we talked about literally, I think, on the very first podcast 2 years ago, and how they had taken off. Then they screwed up, and then they came back with the pandemic. I mean, in a big way. Peloton.
Yeah, this was Peloton's Waterloo. Was a
Yeah,
couple
I
of
got
days
that
ago.
reading that story because they are their stock fell more than 20% Thursday after reporting that it was pausing production of its less expensive exercise bike because of 2 months because demand's so far down. Okay, so I got a sense that now the reckoning has come. We've been predicting this. All of these companies did really well in the pandemic because we were all stuck at home.
Right.
And there's a sense out there that it's starting to end, that the pandemic's beginning to end. Omicron is a weaker variant, and all these companies that just killed during this period, now the reckoning's coming. They can't maintain that kind of level of demand if everybody's going out.
You're absolutely right. I think reckoning is the right word. We've seen data, and I don't know why, as a local reporter, I see this data and somehow Peloton missed this.
Yeah.
But Foursquare, of all apps, shows that we're going out again. We're going to movies and
Yes.
we're going to gyms. And that should tell Peloton and Netflix, hard times are coming again, or at least regular times are coming for them. Peloton continued to build out supply. That's why it has to stop. It thought the good times would keep rolling, but they came to a screeching halt. Netflix is still Netflix. It's still gigantic, but their stock is down something like $250
Oh,
since
yeah, we're
its
going to
high.
talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, and that's just a correction because things got so hot and heavy
Right.
while we were all at home. You have to see this stuff coming ahead, or else
It's
you're going to get
interesting,
burned.
though, that Peloton is sticking with their expensive product and shutting down their low end. I think they probably introduced the low end because they thought they could sweep the whole marketplace, that everybody wanted a Peloton bike. Now it sounds like just rich urbanites want their Peloton.
Yeah, maybe so, and maybe they wouldn't go to a gym anyway. But Peloton was clearly, at least in terms of growth and stock value, a pandemic play. It sounds weird to say that.
Yeah.
A pandemic winner sounds like an oxymoron, but Peloton was that. And the rest of the economy, your Netflixes and your Zooms, seem to be adjusting to what are we going to do after?
Right.
How are we going to keep whatever market share we can? Peloton just kept on building and building, and now they're crashing because they, for some reason, didn't see people going back to the gym.
Well, maybe they can just put wheels on their exercise bikes and go into the bicycle business.
With these big iPad-like things
yeah,
on the
then you
bike.
feel right at home on your bicycle seat because it's the same one.
With someone yelling exercise instructions at you.
Yeah. They lost 76% of their value in the last year. That's
Well, remember, they didn't go public all that long ago.
No.
They went public fairly small. They had a big boost during the pandemic.
Yep.
They had that awkwardness with the woman in the ad and all that, but that didn't hurt them that much. And then they just
gave it all
crashed.
back.
Yeah.
Okay, Bay Area housing prices hit new record highs. According to Zillow, it's because the inventory is so low. You covered this story.
I did.
I literally used your story to write this item.
It's my honor.
Okay, so what are you seeing out there? San Francisco median price is basically $1.5 million. And San Jose is 1.3 something. It's gone down 5% since December, but they're saying just ignore that because it's gone up an incredible amount the last year.
Right. According to Zillow, the big news that's new, I mean, pricing is not all that new, but just the inventory being so low.
Yeah.
A lot of house watchers thought that in the Bay Area, we'd see more inventory as the pandemic eased, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
People being more willing to have strangers walking through the house, to have real estate agents setting things up and staging things. So why are there so few houses on the market if people are indeed getting out? According to Zillow, it's because everything is getting snatched up right away.
Yes, there's
So
just not enough supply out there.
exactly, and what is out there is getting bought so quickly
Yes.
that if you miss even one Sunday walkthrough or whatever, you probably won't get a shot at the house.
Yeah, I know somebody's looking for a house right now, and whatever it's listed at, the agents say prepare for it to be 10% higher than that, if not more, the sale price, because the demand's so great. I'm seeing apartments going up everywhere. I'm seeing condos and townhouses. At some point, we've got to be able to saturate and meet all this demand, right?
Well, at least for renters, yeah. But we've seen this split in the rental and the
Yes.
ownership market, which they're both really expensive around here. But during the pandemic, we saw rents drop because a lot of people went to different places,
Yes.
realizing I don't have to rent a spot in San Francisco
Right.
where it's super
I can
expensive.
go to Topeka and
Right,
work
and
virtually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's starting to climb again as people come back. Now, if there is more supply to satiate that demand, hopefully we'll see at least rental prices drop a bit around here.
So housing prices went up 10% in the last year.
Yes, and that is saying something because housing prices were already
Yeah,
super high.
on that denominator. I mean, it's interesting because typically in the valley here, housing prices go up 10% a decade total. You have the ups and downs and all that, and it goes about 10%, which is impressive by itself. But 10% a year now is a phenomenal number when you're sitting on top of the highest housing prices in the United States. We'll see. I mean, will it stay? I mean, the market's slipping. Inflation will counter that. No, that's an interesting question. Will the housing prices go down because of the economy, or will it go up because of inflation?
I mean, the last time we had inflation, back in the early 80s,
Yeah.
it was fought by raising interest rates, correct?
Yeah, and you had to buy a house at 22% interest.
Right, and that is something that may
It's
hurt the
literally
housing market.
Now, at this point, it's almost an unimaginable number looking back.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I saw a headline the other day saying, "Oh, mortgage rates are way up. They went all the way up to 3.75."
Yeah.
And I thought, "Wow, that's way up."
Just wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, Netflix. Its shares fell 20% on slowing subscriber growth. They reported fourth quarter earnings and they said things are slowing down. How do they counter this? I mean, this is one of these, if people are leaving the house and kids are going back to school, I don't see how Netflix doesn't take a serious hit, at least in the short term.
Right, and it really is. I mean, Netflix at its peak not long ago was a $700 stock. As we speak, it's somewhere around the 400 area. Now, that's a huge correction in a short period of time.
Right.
Is it overcorrecting? I don't know. Maybe Netflix was a $700 stock when we're all trapped in our homes.
Yes.
But a $400 stock when the world is normal. And it's still an expensive stock. It's still a very wealthy company. And remember the last few years were really going to challenge them because of Apple Plus and Disney Plus and HBO
And they survived,
Max.
they survived all of that.
They have.
I was going to say 3.98 million new subscribers in Q1 21. Now only 2.5 million new subscribers in 2022.
Right, so it's still gaining. It's just slower than
Yeah.
expectations, and that's why the stock got hit.
So are we entering the great normalization where reality, it's no longer this distorted world and we're trapped in our houses and everything else, and the normalization has come, or it's coming, and we sense it, and all of these stocks that did really well, I hope they took out some cash. They're all gonna come back to normal. We're gonna see what these companies are really worth right now in a real world.
Maybe, but I don't know, and it's very anecdotally. I'll look at myself. I'm a huge fan of going to the movies.
Yeah.
I always have been.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was. As a student at UCLA, we'd go to these premieres. I've always loved going to the movies. I haven't gone to the movies in 2.5 years. I'm not ready yet. And again, that's anecdotally in one household. But
There's a lot of theaters
I know there are a
waiting
lot.
for you
Yeah,
out
I know.
there.
And I'm waiting for them.
Sunnyvale added a 12-plex downtown.
I miss popcorn. I
Oh,
miss
I
Milk
miss all
Duds.
that
I miss
crap.
the movies that are just gigantic. But other people are going back, and that is going to make Netflix still Netflix,
Yeah.
but less of the only game in town.
They're going
I
to have
think
to
the same-
rethink their model a little bit because they had a captive audience, and now they're going to have to fight for viewers.
Right, and you look at, say, a Disney, they actually benefit from people leaving the house because they're going to go to the parks and the hotels as well as stream Disney Plus.
Right.
Netflix is all streaming.
Netflix is Netflix.
Right,
Yeah.
it's kind of a one-trick pony, so it's got to do that, and it's been doing it well. And I just think the valuations it had during the pandemic were
Yeah.
very temporary, and like you say, hopefully people took some profits.
Right. Okay. Yesterday, the Senate Judiciary Committee voted 16-6 to advance an antitrust bill that would prevent big tech firms from giving their own services preferential treatment. Why did they do this when Netscape was being attacked by Microsoft 25 years ago? Okay, so this is that bundling. They're trying to stop the big boys from just bundling new products, or Facebook buying, Instagram and on WhatsApp. And
Well,
all
right, when you
that.
buy an iPhone, it has apps on it.
Yes.
The Apple apps.
You got to get rid of the apps they give you. Yeah.
Good luck with that. And that's anti-competitive, and that was, I believe, the core of the Netscape lawsuit and the Microsoft monopoly and all that stuff, is that you'd buy Windows and it would come with Explorer and et cetera.
And it only took a generation for
That's
our
wild.
legislators to finally figure this all out. They think it's going to pass, and there's one going on in the House too. This thing could get both houses pass it, get it reconciled, and get it voted on really quickly.
There's a new woman at the FTC. She is known
She's
for
a fire breather.
well, and I think that and also even more important, young and understanding of tech and how it works.
Yeah.
And that's going to be interesting. I think the antitrust, that could be a theme of 2022.
Oh, I think so. Again, normalizing. Intel. After the embarrassment of a couple of weeks ago of, cozying up to the Chinese and apologizing, now they're apparently undertaking a domestic plan, a strategy. CEO Pat Gelsinger announced that they're going to invest, looks like $20 billion, somewhere around Columbus, Ohio. Needless to say, the governor's thrilled. I think he just got himself reelected.
This is big. This is big. We talked about who's going to come out of the pandemic well.
Fabs have been always on the periphery of the United States,
Right.
mostly on the west and southwest. This goes right into the heartland. I mean, are they looking at it and saying, we got enough trained people now that understand tech that we can go into the heartland? I mean, we can go into Enid, Oklahoma in 20 years and build a fab there?
Sure. Fabs weren't being built in other countries because of a workforce concern. It was because of money.
Yeah, of course it was.
So the Intel spending money in Cleveland,
Yeah.
and, great. I think it's great that Intel is spending money, A. I think it's great that Intel is spending money in our country, B. It's interesting that as all these companies try to figure out how to, evolve out of the pandemic, the chip companies may be the big, again, I hate to use the word winners and the word pandemic in the same sentence, but they may be the big winners. Look at AMD, look at NVIDIA, look at Applied Materials.
And we still can't deliver enough chips. So the need is it's still there. It is growing.
Right, and it's not,
But Columbus, Ohio, I mean, the mistake by the lake, almost Cleveland.
Well, but auto companies have been building in Ohio and Tennessee, and, anything that's in America is keeping our dollars here, and that's wonderful.
No, nothing wrong with that. Okay, all right, let's talk about Bitcoin. I should mention our producer Jordan is sitting here with us for once.
Hey, Jordan.
Listening in, and this is especially for you because I know you're interested in Bitcoin. It dropped to this morning, literally this morning, Bitcoin dropped to $38,000. That's a big drop over the last few months. What was the peak? 75?
Something around 70.
Yeah.
$1,000 a coin.
So this is the lowest in 5 months. What's going on?
Well, there have been a few things going on.
They're saying Russia.
Yeah.
And and Ukraine. I mean, really?
Well, look, I mean, news about Russia that has to do with Bitcoin are two categories you've got to triple check, right, in the same
True.
time. So
True.
Bitcoin news out of Russia, you've got to check like 6 times. But yeah, there's rumors that Russia is going to ban Bitcoin mining. Now, this is not a surprise. I mean, think about what Bitcoin is. A currency that you can use without the government's knowledge. That's pretty much everything Vladimir Putin is against.
Right.
So we're not going to see that all that strongly. But just the idea of Bitcoin.
And governments hate this. They hate this. I
Right.
mean, we just heard, I think yesterday, that some people in D.C. are saying we've got to regulate all this stuff. I mean, the whole point of Bitcoin, of cyber currency, was you couldn't get regulated. You couldn't get surveilled by the government.
Right.
And now the government's saying, oh no.
Well, but
You don't get to
and
do
they
that.
can do more than just say oh no in Russia. They can literally put a stop to it, and
Literally.
China too. And I think that's a risk. You're starting to see some of the concerns when something gets this much attention, when it gets this sexy.
Yeah.
You've seen theft of Bitcoin, you've seen fraud, you've seen all these crazy fake weird coins come up.
Yeah.
That cost fractions of a penny until Elon Musk talks about them, and then it.
Well, that's Dogecoin. We'll talk about that in a minute.
And it's not yet I mean, it's got some legitimacy. There are ETFs that trade Bitcoin. The Winklevoss brothers seem to be doing the right thing, and but there's just so much weird stuff.
Froth,
Yeah.
to use your term,
Yeah.
froth, yes.
And so I'm not surprised when these big drops happen. It's not a currency yet.
No.
Because you can't lose half your value in 6 months.
It's not like we haven't warned people every other show for the last 2 years.
But young people are still going to be interested. And again, nothing's wrong with the idea of a cryptocurrency. That intrigues me. But when you're using it as an investment and it drops or gains thousands of dollars within minutes, how can you buy things? That's not a currency yet.
Yeah, it's the Weimar Republic is what it is with that kind of, money currency leaps. Gordon Moore once said to me, I said, well, isn't the smart thing to follow your law, Moore's law, and be right there at the front? And he says, in my experience, the first place in usually gets killed. It's the second ones who learn from watching the arrows in the front of the first one that thrive. And I was thinking as the price of Bitcoin dropped, poor El Salvador. They thought they were going to be cutting edge, make Bitcoin their currency. And as we pointed out, most of the population of the United States doesn't understand Bitcoin. Take a third world country, a developing country like El Salvador. How many of those farmers out there, maybe in the city, but in San Salvador, but how about out in the countryside? You think they understand Bitcoin? And they just made that their national currency.
Right.
They created a minister of Bitcoin, I believe, and they were talking about creating, with that all that money they were going to make, a Bitcoin city.
Yeah, look,
And
it's
now
a speculative currency.
all hell is broken
It's
loose.
a speculative investment, so it's not yet ready for a currency.
Yeah.
But I mean, it intrigues me. I just wouldn't buy a house with it, or a car with it, or even a pizza with it, because you may end up paying 4 times more or 4 times less, depending on the.
Yeah, you may end up paying 4 times more between the time you sign the paperwork and the time they give you the key to the house.
Do you mind if I just mention something?
Yeah,
else?
Please, please.
Another thing about that is whenever you make a purchase with cryptocurrency, it becomes a taxable event. So a lot of companies like Coinbase have debit cards now that allow you to spend your crypto. But whenever you do that, you also have to pay the capital gains tax on any transaction you do. So there's just so many headaches that are
And you
involved
come
in
out of
it.
the shadows. You can't hide the transaction anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now you become just a regular purchaser, like you were using cash.
Jordan brings up a great point. Right. Once it got big enough, the IRS got interested, and it's no longer under the radar, right?
Yeah, I don't think those hundreds of thousands of new IRS employees that they're hiring are going to be looking at regular people's tax forms. This is the kind of stuff they're going to be focusing on. It's going to be the locus of attention of every IRS agent out there.
I hadn't thought of that, but if the new audit sort of standard becomes you're in crypto,
Yeah.
that's going to scare a lot of people away from crypto.
That's true. That's
Would scare me away.
absolutely true. And you can't just show up with a shoebox full of receipts,
Right.
for your audit. Okay, well, related to that, Elon Musk announced that you can now use Dogecoin to buy Tesla merchandise. Okay, and so the price of Dogecoin, the Elon effect, right?
Right.
The price of Dogecoin, which is, remember it was the dodgy coin when it started not too long ago? and now it jumped 15% on to today. I guess it was last Friday, was it?
Yeah, today it's down because it's getting dropped with all the rest of crypto. But again, there's just no
I mean, you
stability.
can't buy a car. You
No,
can't buy
no,
a Tesla car, but
no,
you
can buy their whistle and
whistle,
yeah.
belt buckle,
Right.
that kind of stuff. But here we are. You used to have a joke coin, and now it's become real money, and now it's gaining value, and now it's got Elon's name attached to it.
To an extent, it's got value, yes.
Yeah.
I just would be careful about holding on to your Dogecoin for
Yes,
anything like
and
that.
keep in mind, no refunds or cancellations on Dogecoin purchases.
Well, you should see that coming. Elon's no dummy.
No, he's no dummy. All right, and a final item. I call this one a murder of crows. My town, right here, where we sit at this moment, City of Sunnyvale has announced that it has gone to war against crows because they've invaded downtown. Well, I'm on the other side of Sunnyvale, up by Cupertino and Los Altos. We have a lot of crows here. I've got 120-foot eucalyptus trees around my house. I have some of the only red-tailed hawks living in the Santa Clara Valley, on the floor of the valley, in those trees. The crows come at them 100 at a time. I mean, they're swarming through the skies around here.
Wow. Do you have a laser ready?
Yeah. So I love as we're declaring war. And what are we going to do? We're giving city employees $20 green laser pointers.
Yeah.
Crows are smarter than most small children. Crows are going to figure this out pretty quick. I wouldn't be surprised if they start carrying red laser pointers to fire at city employees.
Or are they going to go 100 at a time at a city employee? That could get Hitchcockian.
So they've solicited citizens for other solutions. Hang effigies of dead crows off of buildings. That'll be attractive for tourists and visitors. Blast crow distress sounds from boom boxes. Nice quiet neighborhood.
Crow distress sounds.
And light up the sky with pyrotechnics. You know what the right solution is?
These are great ideas.
The only solution that'll work that they will never use is a pellet gun with a certain pellet called a Crow Magnum.
That's
it
what it's
actually
called?
exists. It is designed to crack the breastbones of crows and trees. Can you imagine the whole town firing pellets into the air?
Wow, I can. That's
Yeah,
a scary thought.
get used to the crows, folks. They do move on after a while. That's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and LinkedIn. It's great to have you here, Jordan. Come back anytime. And everybody else, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.